Hello. Okay, so I got an email from somebody called Miriam. I think it's Miriam. It's spelled Mirgam, so it could be Mirjam. I don't know, but I'm going with Miriam. And this lovely person said that they have an additional copy of Rehabilitate, Rewire, Recover, and they've read it, they don't need it anymore, and they wanted to know if there's anybody that might need it because they'd like to give the book to that person. They're in Austria, and so if you are in Austria and you are suffering with an eating disorder and you would like a copy of Rehabilitate, Rewire, Recover, maybe just put a comment or something on this video, and this wonderful person has offered to get it to you. I mean, how nice is that? Like, sometimes I know, like, a lot of the time I have to admit, like, people can quite irritate me. I'm quite irritable, honestly, when it comes to people. Animals, I can tolerate animals, very patient actually, but sometimes I just think people are dickheads, and that's annoying anyway. But then you get someone like that just wants to do a nice thing to someone else. I think maybe people aren't that bad after all. Anyway, so if you're in Austria, the book is in English though, so you have to be able to speak English because that hasn't been translated yet. But maybe it will be soon. Who knows? There are very intelligent people out there that keep on emailing me and saying that they're translating my books into whatever different language. And again, I'm just like, God, people are smart, aren't they? People are really intelligent because they can be able to translate a book. It's over my head. Anyway, so if you're interested in and you're in Austria, drop us a note on this video. And what else did I want to talk about today? Oh yeah, so I was just talking to a lovely lady, and in her 60s, and if you're watching this, hi, she'll know who she is. In her 60s, had an eating disorder for 45 years, maybe longer, and wants to really recover, which is thrilling, honestly, because she's going to have a great time. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I know I've talked about it before. I often have people who might be in their 50s or their 60s emailing me saying, I've had an eating disorder for 30 years, 40 years. Is it even possible for me to recover? It genuinely, absolutely, 100% is. And the other thing, then the next thing people say is, because I've had an eating disorder for such a long time, does this mean that it's going to take me far longer to recover than a person that's had an eating disorder, I don't know, for a short amount of time, like 5 years or 10 years or 2 years or whatever? And I can see how, and probably before I'd done coaching a lot, I would have thought that that would be true. But it's just not my experience to be true. It's my experience actually that it doesn't make any difference whatsoever how long a person has had an eating disorder. Their recovery is not necessarily longer or shorter if they've had an eating disorder for 40 years than if they've had an eating disorder for 5. And that on the surface is about, oh, that's a bit strange, why would that be? But then when you look at it and you look at what we're really doing in order to fully recover, what we're really doing is we're training our brain out of a learned response, many learned responses, learned way of thinking, learned belief systems. But ultimately what we're doing is we are training our brain. And then if you look at it like that, it's like, well, of course, then it wouldn't actually take any longer or shorter to train your brain something. Say if we're going to teach your brain something, if you're going to teach your brain your 9 times table, whatever it is, then that, your ability to teach your brain that really entirely depends on your ability to be consistent with repeating your 9 times table to yourself. So it's not necessarily about anything that's happened in your past. It's everything to do with in this moment right now, in this time right now, and in the next couple of days. How often am I going to repeat my 9 times table to myself? That's what our ability to teach ourselves that would more depend on. And so I see recovery sort of being the same thing. It doesn't really matter what's gone on in the past. Once you have an idea and you understand in your head what you're trying to train your brain, the new things you're trying to teach your brain, the new things that you're trying to rewrite or overwrite and teach your brain as the new way of being, your ability to do that entirely depends on your ability to be consistent with your training. So consistency and frequency over the next couple of weeks, or how, when you're doing neural rewiring. And so I find that actually that is what length of recovery is dependent on, not length of disorder or illness. The length of the time it takes a person to recover, it completely depends on their ability to be consistent and frequent with their training, with their neural rewiring. And what I then find is that actually, for people who have had an eating disorder for longer, because they are so fucking sick of it, they are actually so ready to be very consistent and so ready to do it that they actually kind of a lot of the time really nail neural rewiring, because they're like, fuck this shit. I've only got 20 years left to live. I'm fucked if I'm having an eating disorder for any more of it, so I'm doing this. And they get on and they do it, and they are really consistent with it, and they nail it. And so a lot of the time I think that if there's any correlation at all, it's actually people that have had an eating disorder for longer recovering a shorter, in terms of neural rewiring, recovering a shorter amount of time. But I believe that's because they are so determined and they want to put the effort in to being consistent with their neural rewiring. So hope that makes sense. And I really just wanted to make this video because I know that there's those of you watching this that have had an eating disorder for 30, 40, maybe even 50 years. And part of what goes on in your brain is this idea of, I'm too entrenched now. I'm seed. That's what they use in England. I'm, there's not much point. Like that's almost like sort of the excuse you hide behind for not really going into recovery. It's too late for me now. Had this for too long now. You might have had a load of treatment providers tell you that this is going to be a part of your life forever and it's entrenched. And all I want to say to you is, it's complete bollocks. You can absolutely recover if you decided to. And it's so worth it. It really is worth it. So stop hiding behind that excuse of had an eating disorder too long, too old, can't change. Stop hiding behind that and let us get on with it, eh? All right, bye.